Can we believe everything that we're hearing from the doctors from the White House?
Good question. Probably not all of it. Simply and most clearly because overnight one of the things that happened is the president's official physician, Dr. Sean Conley, came out and gave a press conference, a statement about the condition of the president. And during the press conference, he was asked why he hadn't said in previous briefings that the president had been given supplemental oxygen in order to help him with some difficulty breathing, and his answer was quite strange. Have a look.
I was trying to reflect the upbeat attitude that the team, the president, that his course of illness has had. I didn't want to give any information that might steer the course of illness in another direction, and in doing so, it came off that we were trying to hide something, which wasn't necessarily true. So here I have it. He is the fact of the matter is that he's doing really well.
See, you've also got the doctor-patient confidentiality thing going on there as well. But if it's obviously very important if the president's condition does get worse. I mean, what is the protocol for how the vice president makes decisions and temporarily becomes in charge?
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely they need to keep that in mind. You've got to remember that every doctor that has looked into the coronavirus disease will tell you that the second week is potentially the most dangerous when a lot of people who are feeling okay fall downhill. But the US Constitution, oddly enough, when it was originally written, didn't really stipulate what happens if the president becomes very unwell or dies. In fact, when the first president to die in office died in 1841, William Henry Harrison, there was confusion because his vice president said, OK, I'm the president now, I'm the full president. The Constitution was kind of unclear whether he was an acting president or whether he was the actual president now. He said, I'm the actual president, didn't say that in the Constitution, but basically that set a precedent that the vice president would take over as the full president, which applied through the next 7 deaths of presidents in office. Additionally, several presidents have become very ill in office, most notably Woodrow Wilson, who became very sick with the Spanish flu in 1919. He became extremely ill. That was covered up from the public. The public weren't told about his condition, despite the fact that he was very sick for 2 weeks. He had been criticised for his handling of the Spanish flu. It was also covered up when he had a stroke a few months later. His wife, Edith Wilson, kind of ran the country as the de facto president for a little while. After that, in the 50s, President Eisenhower had some heart attacks. That wasn't covered up, but it kind of solidified the idea that they needed to know what would happen in this, nuclear-armed superpower. Now that it had the ability to fire nuclear weapons at the touch of a button, they needed to know who was in charge at any particular point. So they wrote the 25th Amendment that was passed in 1967. But the first time that it really should have been used, it wasn't. President Reagan was shot in an attempted assassination attempt, but didn't sign a letter handing over power to his vice president when he went into surgery, leading to the Secretary of State, Alexander Haig, claiming that he was in charge.
As of now, I am in control here in the White House, pending return of the Vice President, and I'm in close touch with him. If something came up, I would check with him.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? So when was the 25th Amendment first used?
Yeah, so it was first used in the capacity of an unwell president. It was first used by Ronald Reagan in 1985. He handed over power to George H.W. Bush for 8 hours while he underwent some colon surgery. And it was also handed over twice from the US President George W. Bush to his Vice President Dick Cheney. And when George W. Bush announced that he was doing that for the first time in 2002, he didn't think it was a particularly big deal. In fact, he made jokes about it as he announced it to the press pool. Have a watch.
Tomorrow I'm going to have a colonoscopy at Camp David. It is the third such procedure I've had. The doctors recommended I have another one because the last time they found some benign polyps. And so this is a kind of a routine physical examination that will be done at Camp David. I'm going to be sedated for a period of time and will transfer power to the Vice President. I informed the Vice President of this, and he's fully prepared to he's standing by. He'll realize he's not going to be president that long.
So that's George W. Bush. He handed over power to his vice president twice for 2 hours each so that he could undergo colonoscopies. So the precedent has been set. It's not uncommon. George W. Bush didn't seem to think it was all that big a deal. So that is potentially what Donald Trump will be able to do. Sign a letter handing over power to Mike Pence and then sign a letter taking power back once he's feeling a bit better, if he, has to go on a ventilator or if he has to undergo some sort of serious treatment for COVID-19 if his condition worsens. But we've seen him today driving around, waving at supporters, which is an interesting thing for him to do, given that he's currently infectious. But hopefully it indicates that he's okay and that he won't need to hand over power to Mike Pence.
Fascinating times, Matt. Thanks very much for that. So I'm sure you'll want to listen to this week's episode of America if you're listening, wherever you get your podcasts from.